out of bed at like 10:30.
Nice. Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to as of yet award-winning that 40k Lunchtime Show, where we dissect the meta-analyze list and provide more grade A banter than you can shake a stick at. As always, I am joined by my esteemed guest singular, Mr. Jack Tight. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing great. I've enjoyed a lovely weekend at the ITT. Much better venue, I say same venue as normal, much more spacious than I was expecting. And yeah, just good to see lots and lots of people we all know and love. It's such a good event for that. Everyone turns up, you know everyone there, you have a good time.
It was a rather large event, wasn't it? I mean, what was over 150 teams, so like
Yeah,
it was quite impressive.
760 people, I think,
Yeah,
something like that.
that's not too
Second biggest event behind LGT now, I think, for UK.
yeah, which is crazy. So yeah, obviously I was there too. We had probably slightly different paths at the event. The main focus for this video is going to be the ITT. So we're going to talk a bit about the news, but we don't have any lists and we don't have any Dear Deirdres. Nothing was submitted, guys. So basically, this episode is going to be talking a bit about the new Huron Masters of the Maelstrom data sheet that came out in the last week, and then we're going to deep dive the ITT. Which, for those of you who don't know, is the international team tournament. There's 4 every year in the UKTC. They get bigger and bigger. Jack was playing for War Masters, who you would consider one of the favourites. So he will talk through all the team's prep and how they look to tackle the meta. Talk through the kind of like their 5 rounds, and then we can talk about the meta afterwards. Kind of maybe from more the top end and maybe more the middle end as well. So yeah, we will just dive in. As always, let us know what you're up to in the chat. It's always great to hear from you. Were you at the ITT? Are you now having to go back to work on a Monday? Because I tell you what, last night I was so glad that I now don't work Mondays. It was quite a beautiful moment, to be honest with you. So there we go. Let's dive in. Oh, we got War Masters map. My Warhammer heroes, of course. And I think I saw Jack play on stream. Did you play on stream, Jack?
Not this one, not this ITT. I was on at the last ITT. But yeah, whoever this Jack is, they are an imposter. So please let me know. It's my my evil counterpart, Tack Jite, is out there. That's obviously who you saw.
There we go. I should add, just before we go in, like, I think for me, this was by far the most I've ever had people come up and say, like, hello, and like they enjoyed like kind of the content and stuff. That was really cool. So, hello to you guys too. They never showed your face, so therefore they don't know. It's just, hey, Jack. There are a few Jacks in 40k. I have
a couple
in my time.
So you've got a few on 6++, right?
We do actually have a few on 6++. Yeah, ever growing. We like to repeat names, just Jacks. We're all about those sorts of things. Week in Warhammer. Let's kickstart there then. Huron and the Masters of the Maelstrom have been kind of shown off to us. Now, this comes on the back of Ultramarines getting some rather tasty upgrades in recent times. So I guess, Jack, the main thing is, firstly, what do you think of the data sheets? And secondly, is this going to be Warden's version 2? Is this going to be something that really shifts the CSM dynamic, or is it just actually this seems quite good fun and I think they've got it right?
Yeah, I guess let's start with the data sheets, right? And you know what? I think both of these data sheets read across as being perfectly reasonable and not insane units, right? Huron has maintained the rules he had before, where he gives +1 leadership to his unit. And instead, his reactive move has been buffed a little bit to be D3+3 instead of D6, I believe. He's got a good melee weapon buff there. He's up to 6 attacks at 833. That'll put him in a really interesting place in CSM, because I think we've all seen how good Chaos Lords are in Legionnaire squads, and I think a big part of that is the damage 3. Same with Fabius, damage 3. A lot of the really good CSM characters tend to be damage 3. So I wonder if even outside of Red Corsairs lists, we'll start seeing him slotted into quite a lot of lists as a bit of a beat stick character that runs around with his damage 3 weapon and bludgeons people in the face with it.
CSM way, right?
while adding that extra little bit of, dynamics with the reactive move.
The
I think
obsession.
he can be really interesting in a few of the detachments that don't have easy access to things like reactives or just reactive strats to what your opponent is doing on the table, right?
Yep.
I think he'll be really interesting for that. His unit itself, it's a bit of a weird one. This one, right? It's not got anything on it that's like stand out. Okay, this is what it does, right? It is just another. It is like the Warden's unit where, okay, the rules are all right. There's a nice beat sticky character in there with an anti-character 2-up weapon, which is kind of funny. Imperial Knight players, they're really not going to enjoy that one. And it's just a bunch of guys really getting the redeploy that Huron used to have is interesting. I think like most redeploys, it's just a neat thing to have. I don't think redeploys really do a whole lot these days, right? You look at the Deceiver, he's in every Necron list really at the minute, but
Not for the
he's
redeploy.
not for the redeploy, exactly right. Like it's there as a nice starting bonus.
Yeah. Sure.
The Resurrector model, obviously very powerful. That is again something CSM doesn't really have access to. I can picture if these guys can join Chosen along with Fabius, that there's going to be some really horrendous, 16 model units out there that res models with advanced fallback shoot and charge. That is going to be a lot of fun for people to deal with. Maybe a little, party with Fabius as well. 2 Chosen bricks with fallback shoot and charge. I'd love that to
I
be a
just
thing.
heard Lee Churchwood get
I
so
think
excited right there.
I think that would be a really cool list if that ends up being a thing. I
Yeah.
really hope it does. And yeah, other than that, he's got his finish a normal move, do D3 plus 1 mortal wounds, and the really fun thing about that is it will work with Huron's reactive move. So once per battle, if you want a reactive move off someone, you can D3 plus 1 something. And yes, in the chat, I know they won't be able to join with Bile. I'm talking about having like 2 chosen bricks, right? 2 10-mans, 1 with each. I think that would just be a fun way of doing it. Of course, there is also the added caveat that I think it's fair to say as of late, GW has completely lost the plot when it comes to point costing these units. If the Warden's unit being 90 points is anything to go by, this will go one of 2 ways. It will either be 95 points while being better in every way than the Warden's unit, or because it's chaos, it will be 230. And there will be no middle ground with this. It's either going to be insanely broken or wildly overcosted in comparison to its imperial compatriots. So, but I think the rules for these look fine. There's nothing here that's screaming out as me as being broken. Nothing crazy like a 6-inch aura of sustained hits 1 for your whole army, because obviously that wouldn't be balanced, would it? And yeah, I'm looking forward to these guys. I think they're going to make some very cool looking units on the tabletop.
Yes.
And there's nothing here that reads that it's going to immediately ruin the game. So this so far gets my stamp of approval, but we'll wait for the points
Jack's
to come out.
seal of approval.
No ranting about this unit yet, but when the points come out next week and Huron's 50 and his squad's 90, that's it. We'll be going for it. And to answer what points cost I think is appropriate, it's tricky to say, right? Because the Warden's unit, which is their only point of comparison, is so undercosted. But I'd think if I wanted to stick 5, 3, and 4 wound models in a unit, I think you'd have to point it at 140, 150 minimum. I think that's what they should be pointed at. They won't be pointed at that. But I think it's the mark where they should be, right? They're adding huge chunks of stats to units at very little points cost when you look at the Warden's unit. Huron, I reckon he'll probably be similar to what he is now. He'll probably be like 90 points. His leading rule is not that great. Plus 1 OC is nice, but it's not phenomenal. The reactive move is good, but GW have always undervalued reactive move when it comes to points costing units. And damage 3 is a really good spot to be. So I think he'll maybe be a bit more than a Chaos Lord. But otherwise, pretty similar.
Lovely, there you go. Steve in our group chat wanted me to point out that there are also some more Iron Warriors coming out. That's really exciting. Did you see the new model?
Yeah, he's a cool Terminator
cool,
guy,
right?
isn't he? Yeah.
So...
it's nice to have, I guess an actual Terminator character, right? I cannot think of a Chaos Space Marine Terminator character at this point. They've all There isn't any,
There
right?
was the Warhammer Plus one, the
Well, that was a
Thorn
World
one,
Eaters guy. Yeah, that was a World Eaters.
the World Eaters guy. Yeah, so normal
Um,
CSM, yeah, isn't
so
it?
be cool to have potentially a cool new leader option for Chaos Terminators. Hopefully, he'll be interesting. Um, yeah, there's not really much more to add about him at the minute. Nice model. Hopefully, he'll join Terminators. Hopefully, he'll be cool.
Yeah, there we go. Abby doesn't count. Right. So anyway, that's all the boring stuff out of the way. Let's now dive into the world's biggest ever team tournament. Okay, so Jack, War Masters have a long and fun history with the ITT, especially round four.
Yes.
And this time there was no Ignite to lose to in round four. So that
No.
that, that gave you that was nice and positive for you guys. So as we go into the ITT, we spoke in the last show kind of about your prep and like that sort of thing. So do you want to just remind us your team composition? And like now it's after the show, you can probably talk a bit more about like what sort of list were you hoping to get into like the meta pick? So like for example, you took sisters, you didn't take the sisters you like to take, you took a different sisters. So what was the thinking behind that? Like your Necrons, what were they supposed to be playing into? What was Naz and his Custodes supposed to be playing into? Like what was the format for your composition?
So yeah, I think in the run up to this ITT, we definitely didn't hard matrix as much as we normally do. We normally matrix quite a lot of the teams present, but we only did a couple this time.
Yep.
And we were generally we do try to stick with people having factions that they're familiar with. So for us, it kind of reflects in our lineup. I'll start with me because I think weirdly I'm the person who deviated most from something that they played a lot. I know I played Sisters, so you're going, well, Jack, you play Sisters all the time. Well, yes, but it's a very different take on Sisters for me. So I was playing Champions of Faith with the 30 Sacrosancts, Triple Retributors, Paragons, Double Rhino, Immolator, Sanctifiers, just some other chaff. And this list is... The hope was it would have a very good floor in its score. Now, as we'll get to later, maybe there was a moment where we didn't quite achieve that in one of our games, but I'll talk about that later. And the idea was, even if it goes into a lot of the really scary stuff in the meta, played sensibly, it should bring back a fairly reasonable losing score. It's quite hard to push into. Sacrosancts have got a lot of OC. They've got a lot of good defensive buffs for combat. I mean, there's a little bit there for shooting as well, but it's mostly combat, so it's really good at eating that big melee push turn and then just sort of pushing out again afterwards. That was the idea. As long as you don't get overwhelmed in any place on one or two units, then you should be able to navigate a bunch of small losses.
Yeah.
People push into you, it doesn't go well. You get the opening to start going for the win yourself. But that was not my goal for this weekend. Was not to try and win all my games. It was just to get a good, respectable score. We've got Andy playing Necrons now. Andy plays nothing but Necrons, to be fair. He does play a couple of other factions, but Andy pretty much only plays Necrons at UKTC events, and he pretty much only plays variations of Star Shatter with the Silent King and 3DDAs in it.
Yeah.
So, shockingly, his list is Star Shatter with the Silent King and 3DDAs in it. But because we were going for fun this ITT,
Yes.
Andy decided to be, a little bit more fun, and he only took the Nightbringer, his new cool model, instead of the Deceiver.
Okay.
Which he said was rubbish all weekend, and he wouldn't run the Nightbringer again. But
Okay.
that list is good for light tables. That's sort of our we put this down first quite a lot. We put it on a light table. No one wants to play 3DDAs on a light board. That's just not a fun time. And it is just it's the boogeyman going into this event, right? Necrons are the boogeyman going into this past ITT. People are scared of playing them. Giving them their table choice just ramps up that power even more. And we're looking to get some big scary wins from Andy on the light table versus armies that don't really want to play him.
Makes sense.
We had Mr. Matt Bell, our other Necron specialist, playing his other specialist non-Necron faction of Admech. And he, in recent times, has been playing a little bit of Halo's Creed, I believe, very similar to what Harley's been running.
Yep.
And I think they've both concluded that it doesn't, after the points increases, they're not feeling it quite works the way it did
Okay.
in current meta. And so they've, I think Harley's gone off in a different direction with what he's been playing lately. But Matt has gone, well, I'm going to return to what I started with Abmech, which is Skitarii Hunter cohort.
Nice.
And this is just kind of just a good play everything army, right?
Yeah.
It's got a few real bad matchups, right? Like it wants nothing to do with Blood Angels, really, right? That's a pretty bad scoring game. And other sort of lots of fly, high mobility type armies, I think it can have a tough time against. But it's a great jail list. It's got access to lone op strats. It's got just enough shooting to keep people honest on the light tables. And it's got enough melee infantry that, it can have a brawl with other melee type armies for a turn or two while the shooting picks up other elements. It's a real solid play everything type army, jails people really well, but because it's very prone to expending resources, I think it's a little bit limited sometimes in how high a score it can actually get out of some games. Some games it just runs people over because they can't leave the jail, but I think in more balanced games, it's another list that sits quite happily in that 8 to 12 bracket a lot of the time, where if you get the openings, you get a lot of 14, 15 point scores, I think. We then obviously have Mr. Nassim Fouchain.
Playing on something highly technical.
If no one has seen it yet, there is a wonderful picture of Nassim from ITT wearing a yellow crayon outfit. I recommend going and finding that somewhere if you haven't seen it. It's great. And Naz is playing his beloved triple Land Raider Custodes list that he came up with and everyone else nicked the idea off him.
Yes.
And he has been looking forward to playing this at an event for a while, and I think he delivered, right? I think he got 98 points out of 100.
It's not bad.
And it is, if you had to summarize Naz in a Warhammer list, I think this would be, it's not subtle.
No.
It's aggressive, and it's just, I don't know why, I just picture Naz when I see this list now, and it's become synonymous with him. It pushes big scores. It's really hard to deal with for big chunks of the game. And it's surprisingly table agnostic. Like, a lot of people think this needs tables that it's good on. It really doesn't. Like, this list is just good. I would rate it as one of the best 5 lists in the game at the minute, for sure.
Does it have any weaknesses on the Matrix?
There's a couple of like really niche things. Like we found that Big Knight with a couple of Castellans was basically impossible for the Custodes to win in testing. And I suspect other, if you stacked your list full of damage 3 anti-infantry shooting, like maybe like a CSM Renegade Raiders list with Pred Destructors and Noise Marines would probably also be a pretty miserable time for it.
Okay.
It could hold its own, right? I reckon it could even get a winning score out of those games, if it plays it right. But it loses its power, right? Its power is in finding those pairings where you just run people over, and that's what Naz did. He ran a lot of people over,
literally and metaphorically. Nice.
And that brings us to Raf. Raf at last ITT was experimenting around with some CSM, an army he's seen a lot of and quite likes, but he's moved this time to having something he's more familiar with. Back to Blood Angels. He loves Blood Angels. Mm-hmm. And I think Raf really loves his Warhammer where, a unit goes in, blows something out of the water, their unit comes in, blows his unit out of the water, and plays that like 1 unit, 2 units out at a time type trading game really well. And I think he felt a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
And I think just did a lot better with this than we did with the CSM last ITT. So in terms of, I guess, what our plan was for the meta was, I think we've got a couple of lists in here that are kind of fairly decent at playing most things, if not everything. I think my list and Matt's list plays most of the game reasonably well. And, those will be the sort of lists that eat the Necrons matchups if they're easy to get, eat the Custodes matchups, eat the matchups with the big scorers that are generally a bit of a headache to otherwise navigate around. We've got Naz, whose job is to find a pairing that's good for him, which, given he does all of our pairings, kind of
He's
lines
quite
up
good at
pretty
that,
well.
isn't he? Yeah.
And then he just runs them over. Like it's simple as. And then I think Raf was more oriented towards looking for Victrix Marines, stuff like that. Not Necrons, obviously. Blood Angels really don't enjoy that one. But yeah, I think Victrix is the real standout hunt for Blood Angels. I think they're surprisingly good into Victrix. And there's a lot of lists that can't keep up with that level of trading and pressure.
Yep.
I think it beats a lot of the Sisters lists that are out there. Because turns out Sisters were actually taking quite a lot at this ITT, a bit more than I was expecting. So.
Yeah, they were around. Yeah.
And then, yeah, Necrons is our boogeyman. It's our big points winner alongside Naz, where it goes into pretty much anything in the game and should be winning its matchups.
Nice.
And yeah, I think that's the rundown of the comp.
Excellent, lovely. So round one. Let's head down to here. Let's find out who you guys played in round. Is it doing that? It's working. War Masters. So, round one, you played into Mambo number 5. Did pairings go okay here?
I think the interesting thing of pairings all weekend is I think for the first time ever, we all kind of left Naz to just get on with it. We trust Naz's ability to just do it, right? He does. I think they went reasonably well. You know, I think you can look at the scores. There's definitely one matchup in there that we perhaps wouldn't like to see, which is I think Blood Angels into Admech, but I think Matt knows that matchup fairly well at this point. And I hear the Blood Angel guy went for a big play on call that didn't quite work out. So, but otherwise, I think pairings went fairly well. I played some Eldar that I thought was a lot better matchup for me than it was, which is the story of this weekend, and the fact that I definitely didn't play enough games with 30 Sacrosants going into this event. I thought my General Sisters matchup knowledge would carry me. It does not. I'm going to have to put 30 Sacrosants on the table a lot more to be confident playing this going forward. So, anyway, I'll start at the top. Naz with Custodes versus Guard. Now, we found in testing that Guard, this is quite possibly one of the worst matchups for them in the game at the minute, right? And that's saying that as Guard is considered to be one of the best armies in the game right now, right? Grizzled Company is seriously good list, one of the top contenders in the meta. And it has a seriously bad matchup into Custodes. I'm talking 5 points at most territory for Guard, right? Potentially a less, as we can see here. So this is exactly the sort of matchup we wanted to get Naz into. Someone he knows he runs over, and someone he will then run over. I believe our Necrons into World Eaters. Now, this World Eaters list is not like your 20 Berserker, go forward, tag everything super fast. It's like a Gore track vehicle based list. And, you know, has a Land Raider in it, has a couple of Rhinos. And, you know, DDAs pick up that sort of thing pretty well. They're a little bit scared of the big 20 Berserker brick coming in and tagging loads of stuff in a turn, right? But there's no 20 Berserker brick here to worry about. And the Necron guns just line up really well into killing these World Eater type profiles. So I suspect Dandy got himself into a good position, shot a lot of models off the board. Some World Eaters got across the table, maybe killed a couple of things, and then died fairly quickly afterwards. You know, it's Terraform as well, so the World Eaters player is incentivized further to really come out, play the game, try and get his points, but then obviously walks into the Necron gun line. We've got my game versus the Eldari. He was playing the Harlequins detachment, which is really cool detachment. I really wanted to see it. And you know, not to make myself sound better than it went here, because I did play this wrong, and I'll caveat why. But on turn 2, I was like to Naz, I was like, look, can I just shove my army at this guy and just see what happens? I was like, it's not going to cost us a round if I do anything too stupid, right? And he's like, no, I think we're pretty secure on the round. I was like, cool. Because, like I said, I haven't played much with 30 sacks before this event, and they're a very different play style to what I'm used to, right? I like having very fast units that, you know, it's MSU trading, you know, you trade a unit here, you trade a unit there. This is a bit more stat checky, stat blocky, but it's a stat check I'm not familiar with, right? I'm very familiar with using Knights as a stat check, right? I've played hundreds of games with Chaos and Imperial Knights as stat checks. That sort of thing I'm very confident with, and I wasn't sure where my limits were with the Sacrosants quite yet. And I'm still not there yet perfectly, to be honest, but I'm getting a little bit more confident with it. So I was like, all right, let's push some stuff out, see what happens. And I made a pretty big oopsie on turn 2, right? I pushed 2 Sacrosanct bricks out into the middle onto his expansion. And I was like, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this unit of Sanctifiers on his flat, that flat piece of terrain on the sweeping engagement map next to the building. And I'm like, what this is going to do is it's going to stop him from killing 2 of my bricks in a turn, because he can only ignore Overwatch in one place. I haven't used the one use flamers deliberately.
Yep.
And if he gets out with the big 10-man brick and doesn't ignore Overwatch, I'll just kill that as it goes into my big brick in the middle.
Yep.
Or if he doesn't, if he ignores Overwatch on that, I'll be able to Overwatch the Solitaire or any number of scary other units that are going to go into my brick on his expansion.
Yep.
But I shot them into a Skyweaver in front of me, and I left it on 1 wound. And I was like, Sanctifiers are surprisingly okay in combat. I'll just charge it. And I charged it, and I didn't kill it. Which then immediately meant there was no Overwatch.
The Overwatch plays shut down a bit.
And I watched the 11-man Harlequin troop unit and troop master go and kill my brick in the middle. Well, I didn't kill the brick. I think it killed 8, but importantly, the troop master had sniped out the Hospitaller, so the unit was effectively irrelevant for the rest of the game. And then on the left side of the map, I watched about 8 different Harlequin units get out of their boats, fly up the board, including the Solitaire, to go and charge my other unit. And obviously the Solitaire then went and precisioned out the Hospitaller, which then meant the rest of the Sacrosanct unit fell over very quickly.
Yeah.
Even after an interrupt to the rest of the stuff that was over there. So I then spent most of the rest of the game playing with about 5 units. And I think I navigated the last 3 turns fairly well. I think Naz at one point was like, "Are you sure you're actually getting a 7?" I think I was like, I think I'm going to get a small loss. I'm going to take us home. I've got some terraforms up. I don't think you can do anything about that, and that's fine. And Naz afterwards was like, I thought you were going to get a 3 or 4, to be honest, looking at the board state. So, I think it's an okay matchup for me. I think if I played it again, I wouldn't shove the way I did, and I certainly won't be charging any Sanctifiers into any 1 wound Skyweavers in future.
Yeah, you bold man.
I'll be honest, I did it, failed to kill it, and then immediately realised how screwed I was the following turn, so fair enough. I botched that one up.
What do you reckon the odds are if you're failing to kill it out of interest?
I don't know. I'm not someone who runs the numbers on stuff like that, right? Because regardless of if I killed it or not, it was a misplay.
Okay.
Right? I didn't have to kill that 1 wound bike. It was irrelevant. Yeah. It wasn't doing anything next turn that was scary to me, had no vehicles to shoot at, and it's 4 extra attacks if it charges me. Whatever. I should have just let it exist, right? If I kill it or don't kill it, it's still a misplay. I took a risk I shouldn't have taken, and I got punished for it in this case. Yep. And that's what it is. I think if I put this down again, I think I put this down as a small win on the Matrix, but obviously this is... I've quickly learned over the weekend that my Sacrosanct list is not actually good at getting wins. It's only good at getting wins if my opponent tries winning the game, and then I can get wins. Then we've got, as I talked about, the Blood Angels into Admech. I think Matt just knows this game quite well by now. Knows what he can do, knows what he can't do. Play the scoring game on Terraform. Definitely the best mission for Matt to play against the Blood Angel type list on. Can really rack up that primary and activation, lock the Blood Angels. And then we've got Orcs into our Blood Angels. It's just a violent game, this really, isn't it? Orcs and Blood Angels killing each other. But the Blood Angels also have a fight on death now, and they have fights first, which is some pretty good tools, really, for Orcs. Orcs have their own fight on death, but I think it's a very bludgeoning game where the person who's perhaps managing their CP better probably gets across the line. So.
There we go. So we got off to a good start. 72-28 win. So now we'll go over to round 2. And you are playing one of the PSSN teams.
Oh, I believe there's someone you are familiar with on this team, Chris.
There is. Mr. Tim Waters. We do love Tim. To be fair, he found me, I think it was round 4. And he said, hey, and I was like, how's it going? He was like, yeah, really good. Played into War Masters yesterday. Played into Nassim. Was hoping for a really skilled, technical game. I got to pit myself against one of the best in the world. And he just ran land raiders at me, and I spent my time move blocking and doing nothing else, and it was miserable.
It is amazing how, how unskilled Nassim can look sometimes while being the best player I know.
Yeah,
It's amazing because he plays these lists that you look at how he plays and you're like, there's no thought or skill in this. He's just
yeah.
driving things at people. And then other people do it and they just lose.
They can't do it. Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I've said he is the best out there at munching crayons. He
Yeah,
is the best crayon eater I know.
100%.
And I mean that as the compliment
It's
and insult that it is. So yeah, this round, I think again pairings. I think went.
It looks like it went quite
reasonably
well.
okay for us here, right?
Yeah.
I think Blood Angels into CSM. Blood Angels just kill marine bodies really well, right? It's just super high volumes of damage to attacks. They punch up into vehicles well with the Death Company. Too much, I think, for CSM to deal with. Especially, you got to remember this is Purge the Foe as well.
Yeah.
And I think a common trend with a few of their lists there is they're very MSU oriented. So the CSM, the Orcs, Drakari, very MSU type list, very, very much weaker on Purge than they are in normal Warhammer. And less primary advantage to be gained from, really controlling the board, right? Look at an Orcs list. They struggle a lot on Purge because not only do they give up a lot of kills, but holding 3 or 4 objectives for 2 to 3 turns it gets you extra points, sure, but it's not giving you the huge chunk of points you get on a lot of other missions doing it. So, I think their list definitely suffered a little bit here. I think matchups wise, I think the only one I would say we were worried about was I think I had a losing matchup down into Deathwatch. Now, obviously, Deathwatch faction, you could say I'm either very familiar with or unfamiliar with, depending on what part of Reddit you read.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
But obviously, I get how it works, and I'm like, well, they've got anti-infantry 2 up, and my main gimmick is I'm -1 to be wounded infantry, so I was a bit worried about the matchup. But I think otherwise, we were quite happy with how things settled out. We got Necrons against demons that didn't have Be'lakor. If they had Be'lakor, that matchup would not have been happening. Let's make that clear. And yeah, I think it was just a good round. In terms of the games, my game, like I said, I was a bit worried about the game, but I'll be honest, my opponent knows it. He made a very real positioning error on turn 2, where he moved his Indomitor kill team in a way to cover an Overwatch on the 5x5 square at the top of the Crucible map and the building sort of next to it. So I couldn't just run out with some Sisters units and he'd get to Overwatch them with an Indomitor kill team, which would likely pick up a lot of the unit. And I think what then happened was it cascaded, right? And we talked about it afterwards, but I effectively was able to, in the space between sort of the 5x5 square and the building, there was enough room to squeeze 5 Retributors in where only one of the Gravis models were able to see it. And, I said it afterwards where I would have gladly traded 2 Retributor units to shoot that Indomitor kill team because it's the most important unit in his list in this matchup. It's the only thing that has the volume to one-tap a Sacrosanct Brick.
Yeah.
And what happened was, Retributors popped out. I shot an Immolator at the Indomitor kill team, stripped cover. I shot the Retributors. The Righteous Pop give them sustained hits 1. They then killed 9 out of 10 models from the unit. And at that point, I'm now able to really shove my army quite aggressively in the following turns. I've still got Varl in the bank. I've still got, 20-something Sacrosancts at this point because I've charged a unit into the middle to just to start getting the attrition going, really, because I can see that once the Indomitor kill team's ahead, he's really going to struggle to clear me off. And my opponent got really unlucky in the second half of the game with cards and kills and stuff, right? I think I was largely predicting that I'd have about 4 less diff points here, and I think my opponent was on the same track, but no cards were given to him. He whiffed a couple of kills on a couple of key moments, which meant he didn't get a kill more, or he didn't get a kill at all, and it was unlucky at the second half of the game, but I think the key part was in that first couple of turns and the positioning and the appreciation of how important the Indomitor kill team is to that matchup, right? That is the key unit. I will throw twice its points value at it if it means I remove it from the game fairly early on. And we talked about it afterwards. I think we agreed that, it's definitely one of those things where when you know the matchup better, you'd know to protect it better next time, keep it safe, use it more. And then, the other games I think all went to plan. Really, I don't think there's any standouts there where things went wrong. So,
well, Tim did take the only 2 points of the whole weekend off Nassim.
that is true. Those are the
well done.
only two diff points Naz dropped all weekend. So it's
Drakari OP.
Must be.
It's a Drakari thing. So you're, if anything, getting stronger now. So you've got an 88-12 win. So we go into round 3, and look, your Deathwatch player Guy is in the chat. Hey Guy, glad you had a good time against Jack.
I'm glad. I tried to be all right. That's my goal.
Yeah, he's an absolute miserable bastard on this show, but he is actually quite lovely. Right, now then, this is a fun one. So Crow Team 6, they are obviously the main Black Crow gaming team. I think they went undefeated at maybe one or two of the last ones with like wins.
Yeah, they came third at the last IQ.
Yeah, so they've been doing well. This doesn't seem like it was a particularly close game, Jack.
Yeah, there's I think pairings went fine here. I think there was a couple pairings that obviously were going to be tighter games for us, and then I think we had a few matchups we felt very happy about. We were very, very happy with our Custodes into the Necrons.
Yes, of course.
Ultimately, that Necrons is a Hypercrypt list, right? It needs a lot of board space to do its uppy downy thing, get in where it wants, and whatever. Naz doesn't care about your tricks and your 6-inch deep strikes. He's just going to drive 3 Land Raiders and 30 Custodians at you.
Yes.
And at some point in the game, the Hypercrypt list is going to run out of places to go, right? Like on turn 3, you're going to be coming back in the corner of your own deployment zone. Mm-hmm. So I suspect that got pushed out very quickly, and that's why we see the score we do.
Yep.
Necrons into Sisters. It's an interesting game, really, because Sisters theoretically have all the tools mathematically to kill Necrons. The problem is it's not actually about the math here. That's a lot of the headaches and problem-causing issues. So the issues here really is a good chunk of it is the Overwatch. DDO Overwatches now for Sisters are really, really hard to eat. Because you're like, right, my Retributors can go and shoot that Doomsday Arc this turn. It's got +1 hit and wound. Off we go. And you get out, and the Necron player goes, cool, I'm going to Overwatch. Okay, yeah, should be fine. And they roll the Doomsday Cannon, they get, 5 shots. They roll 1, 6, and a 1. They re-roll the 1, they get another 6. And they go, oh, I'm next to Amintar. So that's 4 hits with my Doomsday Cannon. Yeah. And then they get 4 wounds, because winning on 2's re-rolling. And then you can Miracle Dice one of them, but you're probably still losing 3 Sisters.
Yeah.
And then they go, right, I've got 20 more shots with sustained and lethal now. And then you quickly realise that actually your whole unit dies in Overwatch. Which makes the matchup almost unplayable, but it's still manageable. You just have to play an OC-based game where you're just standing on objectives. You're dying to the Necrons, but you're dying slowly to the Necrons, because they can't push you, right? Because they can only Overwatch in one place, and if they let you activate Varl and 2 units of Retributors in a turn, then they are losing a substantial chunk of their army, and they're probably losing the game there afterwards. So they're not able to rush you down and push big scores into you, unless you try hitting them first. If you try hitting them first, then you eat the Overwatch. You find out very quickly they kill a lot of your stuff very quickly, even behind the wall, because the Silent King exists. And then they push out into the middle of the board with the Citan and the Silent King at some point, and you can't clear them off of it. Admech Drakari. I think this is a really interesting game, right? I think this is a very, very, dynamic. Lots of players have lots of choices, and so many interactions to consider here, right? 2 very MSU-y armies that are very capable of just nuking each other off the board at a moment's notice. I would probably give the edge to Admech in this regard, though, because it has a couple more defensive tools, right? They're a little bit more durable, and that durability is really, really relevant when, if a Drakari unit goes in and the Admech pops 5 up, feel no pain, and they leave 2 or 3 models alive, and those 2 or 3 models swing back and kill the whole Drakari unit, it really, really opens the game up. It's a game I imagine was really interesting to watch. So, and I see Darren in the chat is agreeing with me. So, I would have loved to have watched that game. So, I think it would have been really interesting to watch from the point of view just seeing how things interact with each other. It's a matchup we're not getting a lot of in the game at the minute, right? A lot
No.
of the game at the minute is just two big rocks smash into each
Yeah.
other and seeing which one breaks first. But I imagine that was a very technical game. We then have me playing against Sam using guard, using Nassim's guard army as it turns out, and Sam. It was quite funny in pairings where basically I think it was Sam went down as first defender, I think, and we put up Custodes and me to attack into the guard. And Sam's watched enough of the games on the Discord to know that the Custodes game is literally unplayable for guard.
Yeah.
And he was sat there staring at the cards, and I'm like, Sam, just put the card down on the table. I know we all know which one you're taking here. Just put it down on the board. It's me. And we're on the light board. And this is the one I was talking to Chris before the show, where there'll be a great moment to detour and complain about maybe the only real complaint I have from the ITT, which is why is the booklet for the maps so inaccurate compared to the Google Doc? Like, there is at least 2 mistakes I know about in a 5 mission pack. It's, and I'm sure there's more. These are just the 2 I'm aware of, because we played it round 3 as it was in the booklet, where the objectives are covering or not covering the side objectives, and it turns out that actually on the light board they do cover the objectives.
Yeah,
on the
they just removed the square, right?
on the internet. But nonetheless, me and Sam had a lovely game, and neither of us realised it. Right, that's everyone's fault. It's UKTC's fault, right? Can we just print the correct maps in the booklet, please? It's not that hard, surely, right? 1 off in a pack, fine. 2, come on, it's a bit silly. But yeah, so we played on the light board, but like the old style light board where the corner buildings are not covering the objective, which obviously makes things a little bit harder for sisters into guard. So I go first, and I'm like, well, I've got to up the tempo a little bit here, right? Because I need to make myself space, right? I have to forcibly create myself the space to score the points in. So I make a very aggressive move turn 1. I drive an immolator full of dominions up to his sort of top of the map, right, to move block his dawn and his chimeras from coming over to take my expansion. And he overwatches the dominions that get out. He rolls really badly with his Rogel Dawn and kills 1. I then got very lucky, and I killed his Chimera with the Kassakin in it, and I killed 2 Borgren from the unit next to it, right? It's a really good start to the game. I definitely shouldn't be killing all of that.
Yeah.
Not with 1 Immolator and 4 Dominions, but I would have been happy just move blocking the stuff.
Yeah.
But we got all that turn 1, so I was off to a good start. I put a Rhino on an objective full of Sacrosants, but it's up against my, big defensive L, so if it dies, I can get them out into the building, or I can get them out onto the point if it's not to shoot them. And I put a Rhino full of Sacrosants on my expansion objective, going, well, it's going to be quite awkward for you to interact with this, but not impossible. Sam's turn, charges some Catachans over to take my expansion objective, fine. Some Kassakin come out to sort of contest the Rhino, and I think this was perhaps 1 resource too many to give me at this point, right? I think we talked about Sam. I think with Sam about it, where I think he gave me slightly too many resources. He let me get quite a few 2-for-1 trades, which is the sisters' way into this matchup, right? Sisters don't get blown out in this game, but they're not on the winning side of things. But I got a few 2-for-1 trades on turn 2 and turn 3. I had a unit of Sacrosants that were able to kill 10 Catachans behind a wall and a Chimera at the same time, and then tag the Kassakin inside, right? I've gained 3 bits of value, and I've taken his objective, and I've scored a card, or whatever, right? So a lot of points of value gained from that 1 interaction. And my Sanctifiers did the same thing, right? They shot his Kassakin with a little bit of help from other things to kill them. I charged the Catachans, killed just enough to stop him holding my expansion for a turn. And that just gave me that early lead going,
Yeah.
where he felt he had to push. Right, he found out how the rest of the rounds were going for his team. Found out it wasn't going very well.
Yeah.
And we went for the big turn. Right, we pushed all the Bullgren out. We pushed the remaining Kassakin out. We brought the Scions in, and we killed a lot of stuff. We killed a good chunk of stuff in the middle of the board. We cleared off my expansion objective. But if there's one thing sisters do very well, it's kill multi-wound infantry and tanks quite efficiently on a push turn, right? So in response, I kill all the Scions. I kill, I tag his Kassakin up at the top. I kill the Chimera at the top. I leave the Rogel Dawn up at the top. I charge a Rogel Dawn near his home objective with some leftover Sacrosants just to keep it there. I kill almost all the Bullgren, and I just sort of leave him with very few resources. And effectively, this next turn, if Sam rolls okay, the score can come back and we can have a fairly tight end to the game. Sam's follow-up turn was a Rogel Dawn shooting at Morvenval and killing one suit. Might not even have been one suit. It might have been wounding one suit, but it was not good either way. And a Rogel Dawn in combat failing to kill the Sacrosants it was in combat with, meaning that it was stuck there for the rest of time.
Right.
And then the next turn, I pushed everything out further, mopped up a lot of what was left, and then we largely called the game at that point. I drew out some cards, and that was that. I think Sam says it in chat. This is a matchup I know quite well, as it turns out, where it not specifically from the sister point of view. I've just played against Guard a lot, weirdly.
Yes. Yeah,
and they just don't like getting tagged in a lot of places, right? I think there was a few moments here where Sam got tagged in places here and there as well. They get annoyed. Gave me a few too many resources, and I don't necessarily think the score entirely reflects how the game should go, right?
Yep.
I think if Sam doesn't try to push me, I think he gets a lot more points out of the game, but it was already going bad for the team, so hey, what's the worst that can happen?
100%.
And then we've got Blood Angels versus Victrix. Well, I talked about it before. Blood Angels are very good at killing Victrix Marines. Not so good at killing the Redemptors and stuff, but you can kind of just skirt around them, right? Like, they exist, but they don't kill the Blood Angels models that quickly. I mean, they do, but not fast enough that you're like, this has to die before everything else in the list. And I imagine that, a bunch of Victrix got killed. Later on, some Redemptors got tagged and wrapped, and then it's a pretty tough game for the Ultramarines to get themselves out of, I think.
So there we are, guys. So that is, I think that's kind of, this is a moment where you've got to sit up and go, wow, Wallmasters are looking quite strong at the moment. But obviously it's round 4 coming up. Now, round 4 historically is one in which you draw Ignite 9 out of 11 times. And so you're like, there's no Ignite. Who are we going to get? So in round 4, you got to play Welsh Rarebit. So this is a few of the old Welsh lads. So this is an exciting one to talk about, I imagine. I'm
not excited to talk about it.
You're not excited.
We'll do it nonetheless.
Everyone is excited to hear about it. We were driving back, and I was telling Jamie, I was like, oh yeah, they kind of drew the Welsh team. And we looked at the results and we're like, what on earth happened here? So I think my first question is, when it came to pairing, was this what was kind of paired? Was it just a bunch of big wins either side? Or was it just a bunch of random things or mistakes that snowballed that caused this huge, crazy result?
I think I think a few things here that I'll point out from my point of view, because we can all see that I got a 0 in this round. Yeah. I mismatrixed this, right? I've got pretty comfortable with Sacrosants having a pretty decent scoring floor all weekend. And I was like, yeah, no, I think I can keep Orcs to a, I think I had it as like a losing draw, but I think on Linchpin actually.
Tom's on Green Tide?
Tom's on Warhorde, just normal.
Warhorde. Okay.
25 flash kits. I'll be honest, like I can't really excuse myself for what happened here. It's pretty, like, in hindsight, I got this so incredibly wrong, right? It's like, I put it down as like a losing side of a draw, which even in the most optimistic world, is not the case. There's several factors here why it's a terrible matchup for me, but we'll get into those in a minute. And then in terms of what else went wrong in pairings is we've become, we're pretty convinced that the thing that most teams are doing at ITT is they're trying to get Lightboard as the first defender pick, right? You put your Lightboard army down, you roll off, the team loses it every time, move on. And we were convinced that Tower were going to go down looking for the Lightboard, because Tower are an army that they're okay on the normal boards, but they're really, really just so much better on that light table than they are anywhere else. So we were convinced that was going to be their first defender put down. So I think maybe we were a little bit caught off guard when Orcs were their first defender put down. And obviously we'd put our Necrons down as first defender.
Yeah.
Which then meant that, I obviously Tau went up into Necrons as one of the options. I don't know what the second thing that went up was. I'm assuming it was probably maybe Blood Angels or something. I'm not sure what went up into it. But Tau, I don't know what else in their lineup went into our Necrons, not Blood Angels, but maybe Guard, maybe, I don't know. But regardless, it then meant that when they put their defender down as Tom Green, it was like, okay, well, we'll put me up because I have a bunch of small losses anyway. And I assume probably Blood Angels, which it went, no, I don't really want to play that. Played me. It then picked the heavy board because it was a defender. And, I wouldn't say the heavy board was wildly influential in the game, but it did mean that he had a much easier time scoring 13s instead of 8s.
Yes. He would,
so potentially there was 2 or 3 diff points picked up there that I hadn't really considered. And then basically during the rounds, things just went a little bit wrong, right? So I've talked about, I don't think pairings went horrendously badly for us. I think we thought it went all right. I think we were expecting maybe some more points out of a couple of games, but I don't think we were expecting any colossal losses, which is exactly what ended up happening. So clearly we got some things wrong there. I'll start with my own game. So I've talked before, obviously I've matrixed this wrong. I've done I think if I was to say I'm playing this on a heavy board, I would probably put this down. If in the mindset I was yesterday, I'd have been like, oh, it's a small loss, 6 to 7 type bracket. It's not. It's a red. This is not the time for a safety amber. There's no excuse for this, really, right? If you're competing at a good level, and I like to think I am. I like to think I'm doing all right at Warhammer these days. This sort of prediction is not acceptable, right? And this is because I hadn't played with 30 Sacrosants enough, right? If I played more with it, I would understand better how to position my army and maybe get a few points out of it. But as it was, I hadn't played the army enough, so my positioning was a little off in the game. I think I played turn 1 and 2 pretty well. I gave him 2 turns of 8s without overextending myself. But I think my problem was that I was too far back. And I think part of that was because we were on the heavy board and their staging ruin is a bit closer to me than it normally is. I was very, very afraid of how I can use the big empty area behind the square on the Crucible UKTC map. Because with the problem with the big empty spaces, it's very hard for me to shut off Gaz's unit from getting into certain things. So I was positioning myself around my buildings, trying to stay 1 inch off the wall and stop them from coming into me. Now, this is great for surviving, because on turn 3, he had his big push turn, and it got to the end of it, and I was like, I don't think I'm that badly off here. I was like, I've got quite a few things left. And in my response turn, I kill, all 15 knobs and the war bosses. I kill all of Gaz's boys and Makari, not Gaz himself. And I was like, oh, okay, I've dealt with the push. I should be all right here. But then I didn't take any risks, right? There's a couple of risks I then should have taken here that were foolish of me not to take. Risk number 1 was I charged Varl into a knob unit with a war boss because I wanted to kill it, because I was worried that it would kill my immolator and then they would, come along and kill Varl the next turn. This was just a mistake. I shouldn't have done this, right? I should have killed more with shooting or tried to kill them with something else, because what happened was they fought on death. The 3 models that could go into Varl rolled pretty well, killed all of the Paragons and left Varl on 2 wounds, right? And this it removes my ability really to make progress for the rest of the game. And the other big mistake I made on my turn 3 was I obviously left Gaz, on his own near my home objective, and there was a big mech stood next to him. I had 10 Sacrosants near them, and I was like, okay, well, I don't think they killed Gaz, and I didn't trust them to do it. So I just charged the big mech. And as I rolled out my attacks and looked at how much damage I did, I thought to myself, I should have just charged Gaz. I would have basically killed the guy.
Yeah.
And I would have saved myself so much hassle, right? Because then the problem I had was because I positioned myself so far back, it meant that his next wave of stuff was already in a position to come and contest my home and my expansion again. And that's what happened. 10 boys came along, and with Gaz's support, they killed just enough Sacrosants that I'd have to res to hold the point. And this is one of the moments where my lack of reps with Sacrosant showed, because I frivolously spended my miracle dice on things I didn't need to spend them on. And it got to my turn, and I only had 1 dice to resurrect models with. So I had to choose between resing D3+1 on my expansion or on my home. And if I'd been able to res in both places, maybe I could have got a couple of diff points out of the game. But as it was, I kept getting 3s instead of the 8s I could have gotten for turn 4 and 5 had I managed my turn 3 a little bit better, right? And it's not changing the round, right? But it's getting me a couple of extra points,
Yeah, sure.
Assuming that I don't miss Matrix the game in future, right? I do put it down as a red. My target is a 5. Okay, how do I get to that 5, right? And I'm happy to confess I've messed up in a lot of places in this round. And from the start to finish, right? Matrix, stuff in game, how I'm using my army properly. Lots of mistakes here I shouldn't be making. And that's, one of the things that potentially cost us the round. And then obviously, as we can see, we've got a couple of other games that went sideways. I know Matt's accounting of his game somewhat well. He gave his opponent a couple of good 9-inch deep strike charges, right? And his opponent really leveraged those to swing round with lots of high OC units, and was able to contest Matt's points with just lots of trash repeatedly. And Matt just ended up just not getting any points out of the game, right? Losing primary all the time to things he says he shouldn't be losing primary to. He's like, I just let him do these things. He gave up, I think he was saying he gave up a unit of Rust Stalkers to try and jail him when he didn't need to jail that part of the board. I think I would have it down as a small loss to AdMech normally anyway. I don't think Matt's dropped a lot from where that's to be expected, right?
Yeah.
I think he's maybe dropped 2 or 3 different points. I think the game where everything probably went a little bit wrong, and the thing that really flipped around, was this Necron's Tau game. And I think it's just a volatility game on the light board, right? I'm not going to knock Andy as a player because he's incredibly good. So, and I haven't talked to Andy enough to know what went wrong in the game. But my assessment probably is that Riptides killed Doomsday Arcs real good on the light board, and Doomsday Arcs did not kill the Riptides real good back. And it's one of those games where, because you're playing the 4+ Invuln Casino on a light table, it can go real bad quickly for one player. And that, I think, is probably what happened here, right? I don't think we respected the potential that they wouldn't defend first with Tau, right? And we've given ourselves a volatile situation potentially where we've got Tau into Necrons on the Tau's board of choice as well as our board of choice. Mitigating our board choice, getting themselves another board choice for themselves, and really making one of these matchups volatile.
Could you have just taken the normal board instead?
Potentially, right? But I assume we probably went, it'll be fine, right? I don't think it fundamentally changes things radically, right? Okay. It's still, I think, a 4+ Invuln Casino. Maybe it raises our floor a little bit, but even if Andy comes back with 6 points, right, we're still not out of the losing bracket yet. There are still other things that have gone wrong this round, mostly stemming from me dropping, 8 diff points right off the bat. 8 diff points gets us to 54, pretty much, right? We only need a couple more from there. So I am largely to blame for the loss, for the draw of this round. I accept my share of the responsibility for mismatrixing and just misplaying in game, and that's that.
So we did get some wins, though.
We did, yes. Naz ran over some Blood Angels with his Custodes. I think it's just Naz knows what he's doing. I think Blood Angels can kill the Custodies. I think the problem they have is they can't kill Land Raiders. So the Custodies sit in the metal boxes and they wait for a big scary Blood Angel unit to come over, kill their metal box, and then they just kill whatever came out to kill the metal box.
Yeah.
And our Blood Angels into GSC. I would be inclined to think this is a very Blood Angels favoured matchup, but apparently it is from the other side's point of view. Actually, I think they said they 20'd Blood Angels previous round with that GSC list. Apparently, it's just a very volatile game. But I would be inclined to think Blood Angels would have an advantage, right? Blood Angels kill MSU stuff very well. And yes, there's a few Block of Aberrants in there, but I'd be surprised if a Death Company brick doesn't pick that up. My general assessment is Death Company bricks pick up everything in the game. So I don't know. I'd have to ask both players about that a bit more, because they both seem to be in a disagreement about how good the matchup is for each other. So
Right, interesting. So you haven't lost. You got
no, but we haven't broken the round 4 curse.
You haven't broken the round 4 curse.
So I think it's fair to say after this round, I know I was, Tom asked me, he's like, you okay? After he was like, you okay? You're not annoyed at all? I was like, look, I'm not the sort of person who gets annoyed about games of Warhammer, right? Like, sometimes I lose, sometimes I get things wrong, right? Fair enough. Right? As long as I learn from it, all good. Obviously, I'm disappointed, right? I'm like,
yeah.
I've potentially cost our team that round.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially people took risks because of my mistakes, right? That resulted in us getting less than we should have done. But it's important that, you move on from that, right? We all make the mistakes, right? Obviously, to some extent, I'm annoyed about my performance, right? Not Tom. We had a lovely game. I want to make that very clear. Our game was fantastic. He's a lovely guy. But obviously, there's like a sense of, annoyance is the wrong word, right? You're disappointed to have let people down, right? Or feel as
it's a lot harder in teams, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Right. In singles, I'd have been like, yeah, whatever, move on.
Yeah, exactly.
In teams, there's other people, right? And it's important after that you do put it behind you, right? I think I'm very good as a player at going, all right, it's gone a bit wrong here. Deep breath, move on.
Yeah.
And then we get to round 5.
Yeah. I know you're trying to gloss over the fact that you just lost to a member of 6++. That's probably the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to mention it, really.
So I just
Normally how it works is you recruit them after they've beaten me.
No. Got him in this time, mate.
This time you managed to get him before he played me and beat me.
Nailed it. Well done, Mr. Thomas Green. There is hope of us closing the gap. Something like 37 wins to 8 at the moment. So we'll catch you one day, mate. Right. Final round. I imagine the team's out for blood here. And you've got Typhoon, who obviously a very strong team. So talk us through the finale, sir.
So I think here is, I think it's been largely the same plan, right? Necrons go down. Actually, I think we might have put Admech down here because we were like, we want to try and get this light board for our Admech player, assuming again that the objectives were in the open. And we went with that. Try and abuse the lone op on the table where lone op is really powerful. They put down Admech, and I'm not sure what else they put down. I'm assuming it would have been like potentially demons, which would be why Matt would go, nope, not playing that. And I believe this was the only table roll-off we won all weekend. Okay. So we wanted the light board for that. And I think pairings-wise, the only shaky ones I think we really had for us were my game into Custodes. As I've said before, that's not a good game for Sisters. It's a little bit better for Sacrosancts, I think, than the Bringers list, but I wouldn't ever feel comfortable matrixing it as a win. There's certainly still too many failure points, I think, but overall, that is what it is. Necron's Mirror, I think, was unexpected. I think our first two pairings were 2 mirrors. Okay. And I think that sets the tone for the round, really, right? When you've got 2 mirrors, things get very interesting, very
spicy,
quickly, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no matchup difference at this point, right? There's no faction differences, right? It's just 2 people playing each other and seeing who comes out best with it. We got our demons their demons into our Blood Angels. I would be inclined to think this isn't a great matchup for Blood Angels, but I again have been told that it's okay. But I I'm not surprised to see this scoreline. I think it's very
Okay.
possible and within the world of possibility. So maybe an area we got our matrixing a little bit wrong. I certainly don't think 16-4 is the standard score, but I certainly wouldn't feel confident playing Blood Angels into that list. So otherwise, we had Naz into their Space Marines. Now, we found out immediately after pairing that their Space Marines player had never played against 3 Land Raider Custodians before, and that's not a list you can play without knowing.
Yeah.
That's if you don't know what that list does, you are getting 0 points. It's so aggressively powerful, especially if you don't know what's going on. And yeah, like I said, otherwise the Custodies Sisters game into me should be good for the Custodies. But I have played Sisters into that list a few times by now, and there are a few things I've picked up on what I need to do to try and best get my way through that matchup. I think they said it best in the chat there, where they're talking about they didn't think about the difference in the AdMech mirror, which is the lone op strat, right? Our AdMech can interact with their AdMech a lot better, right? They try and interact with our AdMech back. We hit lone op somewhere. We hit some other defensive buffs. They bounce a little bit, leave something alive, leave a lone op unit alive. We get more primary. We go in, kill some of their stuff, do it again the next turn, right? Halo Screed definitely has the damage, but we have the tools to play a better game than just a shootout, basically.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll start with my game once again, because it's the easiest one to talk about. Like I said, I went into this game knowing it's not a great game for me. So my plan during deployment was I think is a pretty clever idea. I was like, right, on my expansion, I'm going to try and get 20 Sacrosants over there. I'm going to have 10 on the objective, right, on that building, and I'm going to have 10 behind them within 6 of the front of the building so I can heroic.
Yep.
Now, why this is important is because of how the Custodian Guards reroll wounds work. Is they only reroll wounds when they hold the objective. But importantly, that check for when they hold the objective is at the beginning of each phase.
Yeah.
So what happens basically is turn 1, we both do literally nothing. I run some Sacrosants over to my expansion. He drives a Land Raider onto his. We both score some points in the middle for some cards, and we move on. Turn 2, he goes into my Dominions because he wants to kill my screens, I assume, so I can't block his ingress from his remaining Custodian Guard squad, right? And to put a lot of pressure on me to deal with this unit. I heroic with a unit of Sacrosants. He puts just the sword into the Sacrosants. I'm really hoping he kills a model, so I res on the middle point. He doesn't kill a model, even though I miracle dice the failed save, because I annoyingly passed the feel no pain. So I was like, fine, I'll do it the hard way. I popped my +1 strength and an AP, and I bludgeoned the unit to death. I killed all 4 Custodian Guards. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll take the objective anyway now by consolidating onto it, thank you. So I'm already up a bit, right? I've gone second. I've gained 5 extra primary here. So I'm already looking at potentially being 10 primary up. So my opponent is like, all right, he start making some plays here. Over the next turn, he rapid ingresses his Custodian Guard in at the top of the map, and he drives his Land Raider full of Custodian Guard up at the top of the map to try and take my expansion. Now, this is where I think I was quite clever. He charges his first unit in, obviously knows I'm going to heroic with the second one. He comes in, tags me, cool, 1 model can't be on the point, so he's only got 3 models on the point. I heroic and get my other Sacrosant unit onto the objective, so I now have 28 OC on the objective. This means that when the other unit of 5 guard comes in, he hasn't got enough models on the point to take it off me. Now, this now means he hasn't got reroll wounds, which is great because it means my -1 to wound is a lot more powerful. I can now also stack this with a stratagem to make myself -1 to be hit in combat. And if I do it on a righteous unit, which both Sacrosant units in that corner were, I get to put it on another Sacrosant unit within 6 for the phase. So now I have 2 Sacrosant units that are -1 to hit, effectively -1 to wound, with a 4-up in von Fire Finna Pain. He then bounces off both units. I res a bunch of models. I still hold the point. I clear off all of his models. I've gone and contested his expansion at this point for a turn with the unit of Sacrosants that got lucky in the middle. And I'm now 15 points of primary up effectively. So I'm able to really start pushing out and pushing the tempo now, trying to get a bigger and bigger win. My opponent very sensibly in the last turn moves everything back to try and deny me cards. I just roll a 9-inch charge anyway, and I kill another Custodian Guard unit with Sacrosancts in combat, which is not at all what should be happening, but it happened 3 times this game.
These Sacrosancts are on fire there.
Yeah, they had a pretty mediocre weekend in
Yeah,
terms
they
of
just
pulling things up
lit,
until this point, but I kid you not, every single time I activated one of these units, I was converting about 50% of my attacks into wounds, which is not where I think that should be going. But
No.
it felt very, very, very unreasonable for him. So I was very happy to get a 13. I hear the Necron mirror was a little bit chaotic, where as with Necrons, oh, this died, this didn't die, this didn't die, this didn't die, and apparently it's a bit of a slogfest between models that refuse to kill each other. So that stalemated into a very small win for us in the end. The Admech mirror, I've talked about it a little bit, where it's just because we had Skitarii Hunter cohort, we were able to leverage that lone op strat, and also because we were playing the map wrong, because we were playing it the way that it was in the book, and then we realized too late into the round that we were playing the map wrong, and it was too late to really fix it at that point. Please, UKTC, print the goddamn right maps in the booklet. It's not hard. Demons, Blood Angels, I've talked about this. I think this went as expected, at least from my point of view. Whether Raph feels differently about it, I don't know. And then Naz ran someone over that didn't know what the Custodies did, and I beat Custodies because I played the matchup about 6 times. So overall, we had a decent win, but not a massive one, right? Like a solid score.
That's solid. That's the 65 is pretty good.
Yeah, and that brings us to 4 wins and a draw. I think we got 5th place in the end out of 155 teams or something like that, which we wanted more, right? We wanted that 5-0, we wanted to be in that top cut bracket, but we came 5th at the biggest teams event there ever was, right? We can't take that away from ourselves, but we definitely felt we could have done better, right? At least I felt I could have done better, right? I felt like I should have played more games, I should have been more practiced with my list, and I wasn't as accurate as I would have liked to have been over the weekend. So,
and I think there's different layers now of ITT. Like if you go back a couple of years ago, it's very much if you were really good, you were fine. If you put in the effort and prepare, you'd be in a good spot. And now you've got this situation where you can be a really strong or a team of like good tournament players and do your prep, and you can just go 3-2. And at this level, it's where you're trying to compete for the final now. It's such a high level. Absolutely. All it takes is that miss matrix, and suddenly you're getting a draw rather than the win or whatever, and it costs you that chance because it is just such a high level. And even us who are playing, we took 5 teams, we mixed it up, and so we're all kind of mid-table-ish, but you're still playing into lots of teams who are very strong tournament players, who've got their proper matrices done and stuff. So it's an interesting time for like kind of the team events and stuff.
Yeah, I've said this to a few people, right, where I think these days a lot of people in Warhammer are very comparative on a decision-making ability in the table, and the thing that's really differentiating people is matchup knowledge, right? So many people really understand what they're supposed to do now that you can't just get by in games by being a better player than your opponent. You have to understand the matchup better than your opponent. And that is what I failed to do this time, right? I didn't put in enough games. In hindsight, I should have just submitted Bringers of Flame, but I have to get more comfortable playing other types of lists, right? I think that's one of my weaknesses as a player, is I play MSU trading armies really, really well, right? Orcs, when they're MSU focused, I'm really good at when they've got a bit of shooting as well. Sisters, very MSU. I played Drukhari for a little bit, and even though I didn't play them much, I did very well with them, because they're all very much MSU trading oriented armies, and it's time I pushed myself out more as a player, right? I played Chaos Knights last year for WTC. I feel very confident playing big model stat check type things now, right? I know when to play them cautiously and play them aggressively. I'm now trying to push myself to play other types of lists, right, where I have to be a bit more risky, a bit more. Okay, maybe I pass some saves, maybe I fail some saves here, right? I'm such a risk averse player that I have to push myself out more to be more willing to take these risks. And that's my improvement goal, I think, for the year. I think I'm really going to push myself to take more risks in my games, right? I think I've become too used to Miracle Dice being able to bail me out of
Yeah,
all risky decision making, right?
yeah,
And I got it right in a couple of things here where I took a couple of risks and they paid off in the times I took them. But there were also times this weekend where I didn't trust myself enough to go, okay, he might just bounce here, right? I was too far back, I was too defensive, and I was too scared of the worst.
yeah.
And yeah, that's, I think, is my feedback from this ITT for myself. I have to get more confident in taking a risk in my games.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. So I guess we look at the winners. So we've got the Swedes came over. They brought 4 teams over. One of our teams played 2 of them, including Pfizer in round 1. My team played one of the other teams as well. The Swedes came over and went undefeated. They looked like one of the favourites, didn't they?
Yeah, for sure. I think they were definitely viewed as one of the favourites coming in. I think from our point of view, it was Weisler and Yokai were the 2
Yep.
teams we really had in mind coming into this event. And, well, one of them is here, and the other one only lost to the other team in the final. So
Yes.
those were what we were scared of coming in, and Weisler certainly showed us that we should have been.
Yep. Shout out to Sigil, who are just so strong now. I mean, they got in the final and they're also going undefeated there. So we've got Tom Green's team, Welsh Rabbits. Tom's in the chat. Well done, sir. Good old Vanguard Tactics, smoothing their way through. There we've got War Masters. Fire and Dice, always a strong team. Try Hard. They've got the French. Army Reactor, they lost to the French in round 1 and then went on a bit of a rampage there. Some really good scores from a really strong team. And you can see here we've got Glasshammer, My Goblins. I've got Ed's team here who proper submarines, truly. They absolutely nailed it. But great effort from those guys in 13th as well. And then obviously you always have to take sort of player results with a pinch of salt, but it is quite interesting to look at the top just so that we can kind of see which factions were the ones which were kind of, I guess, dominating in terms of the push play, or the ones that were supposed to be getting the big wins and delivering. Obviously, the top is always slightly scuffed because whoever plays in the final gets an extra round of points. So that's why
I will add the caveat, by the way, though, that Deathwatch list was the highest scoring list before the final cut.
It only dropped 1 point.
It is definitely worth if we're going to talk about what they took, that Deathwatch list scored them 99 points in rounds 1 to 5. And as someone that's played Deathwatch, it's a very, very interesting army. I think the main thing here is that this list has a terrifying amount of indirect in it, right? It doesn't look like it. You'll read it and you'll be like, oh, there's not much there. But I think it probably really forces you to come out and play the game with it. And then when you come out to play the game with it, it drops 2 Gravis kill teams, and the Fortis kill teams come out in the open, and you see the eye-watering output that Deathwatch actually has access to. Double Oath of Moment with sustained hits up on your whole army, while also being able to be +1 AP, ignores cover, +6-inch range, anti-infantry 2 up. You have, I think, potentially the most devastating single go turn of any army in the game at the minute. And it really forces it to happen through that splash of Desolator indirect on the Fortis kill teams. It can play against stuff that hide behind walls, and it just plays the uppy-downy shooting on UKTC boards so well, right?
Yeah.
UKTC is super good for uppy-downy shooting armies, and I think this is the best uppy-downy shooting army in the game by far. And I think they've really min-maxed this list really well. You've got a couple of Incursor squads that can be your early game trades, but they can also help you on that go turn by giving you +1 to hit. So I might actually give this list a go, as a resident Deathwatch expert who's definitely never cheated with them in his life. I very much would like to give this a go just to see how it is on the table. So maybe I'll give this a go soon because I have all the models for this. So
Awesome. Yeah, one of our players, Sam, is at the moment talking about a new army, and someone said Deathwatch. Other people said, "Well, yeah, can you imagine Sam playing Deathwatch?"
no, I can't.
As
As it
someone who
turns
knows
out.
Sam, but they're saying, "Well, maybe it'll get Legend. Who knows? We'll see." I quite like this. So we've got double guards, so both here. So Gustavo,
Yeah,
obviously top player.
Gustavo's list is largely the same grizzled list we've been seeing, but he's swapped one of the Dawns for 2 more Scion units with 2 more Scion
Okay.
command squads. It's a very interesting direction to take it in. And I again think it might be to do with how good deep strike shooting is on UKTC. I'll have to ask him if it's like that on WTC as well. I think I saw him in the chat earlier, so if he can answer that for me, so I don't have to have an opinion, that would be great.
Ideal. And then we've got the kind of things you'd be expecting.
Oh yes, sorry, I need to mention Nork in Gustavo's list. It's his favourite model, Nork the dog.
Okay.
Turns them into a mortal wound dealing machine.
Okay, there we go. Excellent. There's secret sauce for all you guard players out there. And then we got guards, we got demons, we got necrons, we got custodies here. Good old Alex.
Alex almost 20-0ing every single person at the event again.
Alex. What a machine he is. Even better than Nassim, I heard.
That's what the rankings say. So
exactly. Nassim there. Good old Ed on his demons, doing his blunting, refusing to play all Necron players. Got some Blood Angels. Got Manny on Knights. So he went for the Knights. What sort of Knights was it out of interest? I didn't see many Knights at all this weekend. We didn't play into any Knights.
Yeah, it's double Lancer, and I've seen that there's a couple of events this weekend that have been won by double Lancer in both Chaos Knight and Imperial Knight varieties.
Okay.
So I think this is about to become a thing. I'm really disappointed it has, because it's just another stupid 4-up in Von Crayons army. But unfortunately, and in fact, it'll answer a question we had in the chat a little bit earlier about there's a lot of blowouts in the game. Yes, that's just the game we're in at the minute. It's loads of 4-up in Vuns, loads of people just bludgeoning each other over the head with big math rocks, and you just see what happens. It's not the game I enjoy the most, but it is the meta we're in at the minute, and if you look at a lot of the list building, it really reflects that. You need to have a defensive backbone at the minute, but you also need to have crazy output to kill the other people's defensive backbone. So,
and as someone who played a list that does not have the ability to kill people, I can tell you it is not actually a very fun experience. And if I had taken the list I took to and played the games that I did in a singles environment, I would have left that event very, very miserable. So yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with the you need to be able to kill stuff. But other than that, you can see these are all the undefeated lists, and as we always say, you have to take these with a pinch of salt because pairings massively adapt that. Are there any trends that you've kind of felt like? We felt like there were a lot of Custodian Land Raider lists, there were a lot of Demons lists, Blood Angels or Victrix were really popular. Obviously Necrons.
Tell me, Chris, do all of those things have something in common?
Maybe.
Do they all have 2-up armors or 4-up invulns?
Yeah.
Do they all do lots of damage?
Yes. There we are, guys.
That is it, right? You look at what's working well in the meta at the minute, and they all has good saves, good invuns, and high-ish output, right, at minimum.
Time for Grey Knight Terminators. That's what I'm hearing.
Grey Knight Terminator is a little bit lacking on that output thing, as we might say. So
they get an extra AP in combat, mate. How dare you?
Extra AP don't mean nothing when everyone's got a 4-up invuln.
Oh, man.
But yes, that is unfortunately the meta we live in, right? If at the moment you're designing a list and you're going, can I kill this thing? If the answer is no, and you want to be very competitive, right, at the moment, you need to rethink the list. Killing is so much of the game at the minute that I have, me, king of the trash and scoring units, I have two garbage pieces to throw away for secondaries in my list. Because you just can't afford any more than that. And that's the way, especially teams is at the minute. Singles maybe not so much. I haven't played much singles in the last couple of months to comment on it. But yeah, the metas, it's not what I enjoy, right? It's nice to see there is still some variety within the things that are doing this type of game well. But I would like to see other armies that are unable to put forward this kind of stat check be able to play alongside these armies.
Yep.
Feels like we've become a little bit too oriented in points efficiency for wounds at the moment. So
yeah, no, I think. And as I say, Joel Hansen on Grey Knights won all his games and drew one, I think. Yeah, so I'm actually literally before the show I was preparing my Grey Knight video, and I was looking. I'm going to do a section on the best Grey Knight lists. And yeah, funnily, in a shocking turn of events, the top 3 lists were all Wartbane and all had quite a lot of Dread Knights.
Tell me, Chris, what do Dread Knights have?
And in a weird turn of, you guys are all talking about deep strike shooting. I'm like, well, I have deep strike shooting. It does sweet fuck all. But if you take Dread Knights, which drop down and do all the shooting with a 2-up, 4-up, then maybe that's the way forward. How boring! Ugh, it's not why I play Warhammer. In a completely unrelated piece of news, I'm not going to be playing Banishers anymore anytime soon. So, but I'll talk about that another time. I guess my final question for you is not the meta, but the event itself, right? UKTC are in a really interesting position at the moment where they're doing things. UKTC are making decisions. I think it would be fair to say that not all of the feedback has always been positive. We, in fact, next Tuesday are going to be, our podcast show on Tuesday evenings is going to be about the state of UK tournaments at the moment and what's going well and what we can improve upon, because we feel at the moment it's in an interesting spot for a whole host of reasons. I think it's fair to say that UKTC have the spotlight on them at the moment from the competitive scene. Like, are they going to rise to the challenge? Are they going to deliver what they're promising? So for this event itself, did you enjoy it? Do you think it was a good event?
Yeah, I mean, I love teams events. I love the nice thing about having events this big is you get to talk to a lot of people, see a lot of people you know. But it can be hard to have that personal touch you maybe get at smaller events, right? Like, at least for me, I've got so many people I know. There's so many people I know who were there that I didn't talk to this weekend, right? Like, I saw you right at the start, right? And I didn't see you for the rest of the weekend.
I see.
And, you know, that does get lost a little bit with events this size. Otherwise, I was very pleased with the amount of space I had, given that historically they've not been great at having ideal space on tables at UKTC events. I certainly know that after they announced the price increases, it was one of the things I'm like, okay, if this is going to be more expensive, there are now things I expect to have, space being one of them.
Yes.
In terms of other things, I've talked about it a lot, but like the fact that the book printout that every player gets is wrong, not just once, but twice minimum, it's not good enough, right? Some teams are pairing based off this booklet, right? And yes, it's all well you go, oh, well, technically you need to look at, the document on the website should, it's the correct one. It's like, well, yes, but also,
but if we're
expected to check it and know, we expect you as the organisers to check it and know.
Bit like the Active Games Workshop, right?
At the very least, check it and announce it at the start of the round, right? I heard no announcement telling us that map was wrong, right? Yeah. None. And I'm sure plenty of people mentioned it to them over the weekend, right? Someone just has to go on and announce it. Yes, it looks unprofessional to admit that you have gotten it wrong, right? But unfortunately, we now all know that you've gotten it wrong and you haven't tried to fix it. That's not good enough. The other thing is no water.
That was
no water at all. Like you have to go to the bar.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work, right? When you have a queue of
it's the first one I've ever
people.
been to without the water jugs, and that genuinely was the thing that annoyed me the most the entire weekend.
Yeah, it's like there's no water station, and there's queues of like 20 people, 30 people trying to get drinks. It's like if you want a drink mid-round and stuff, it's now genuinely tricky and awkward to do it. So that was another thing that got me. I don't know what the food van situation was like because Nassim finished our game so quickly that
you go get it.
He went off and
I don't think it was great.
all of our food. I
Yeah,
assume it was bad. I saw the email saying that we've got 2 food trucks
yeah.
for
As
a
soon as I saw that, I was like,
750 player tournament. It's like, come on. Surely we've learnt our lesson that is not enough for 750 people,
I think
right?
there is some sort of tie with the venue, but I think for me, it's the phrasing on the email. It was like, we also have 2 trucks. Like they phrased it in like a positive way,
Yeah, it
whereas
was
you need
phrased.
to actually phrase it the opposite.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there's only 2 food trucks, so make sure you bring your own food. Like,
yeah.
but they have to phrase
There
it
was
differently.
some. It was just phrased wrong, right? Where it's like
Yep.
that's not a positive thing, right?
No.
No one's looking at 2 food trucks as being a
They're
good
going, oh,
outcome for the event. And I think the other interesting that came up over the weekend was, from what I could tell, there was no ability for the judges to make an important call on how an So basically, I was told that in one of the rounds, you know, like the Crucible map, right, where you've got the flat piece and the big building next to it,
yep.
where a big knight was able to tow into the big building, and because obviously the edge of the buildings on the UKTC buildings are not like flat, they're not square, right? They're like
Yeah,
crooked
yeah.
and designed. Well, it was argued that the knight could see through the gaps there between the, you know, in that tiny gap between where the flat piece obviously extends up infinitely and the building, because the knight is towed into the building, which rules is written perfectly correct and legal, right? That is how the rules work. But that is not the consensus on how that works, right? So you can't see through your tiny little gap in your building into their tiny little gap in their building to
No,
shoot units inside the terrain.
yeah.
And I was told that supposedly the judges were not able to disagree with this, which maybe I'm wrong, right? This is all hearsay, right? That's, you know, word goes round, right? Maybe I'm hearing that wrong. And if I'm wrong, okay, I apologize in advance. But if that's correct, that's ridiculous, right? Judges need to be able to make decisions like this on the spot to stop people feeling bad about having this done to them, right? The fact that this, one, was not able to be stopped, and two, if you can't stop it, at least make it amend it, right? Like at least be like, okay, right, you player who's on the receiving end of this, fix where your models are, and we move on with this, right? Yes, it's not ideal for everyone involved, but we need to be able to make a decision that doesn't make someone feel bad about their game. And the fact that this has happened is disappointing.
Yeah.
Because it clearly hasn't been played like that, right? And judges need to be able to make a decision without higher ups being there, you know, that makes things positive for people, right? It shouldn't be that we have to have a higher up judge there to make a decision like this. It's, you know, I think some improvement needs to be made there. That's not acceptable or good enough, right? That's the sort of thing that really ruins people's weekends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I would say, I guess, because we've had a chat this morning as a team kind of about the event actually, and it was noticeable there were more judges walking around. Like, you know,
Yep.
historically, you want those because you want to be able to, you know, when you have those, oh, like for us anyway, you have those like incidents where you're like, oh, I'm not sure, and you kind of, oh, but I can't be asked to get a judge, whatever, like just go with it. But actually, when they're around, you can just be
Yeah.
like, sorry, we just have a quick question, and you could see a lot of the time, like whenever we spoke to when they were trying. So there is that element. I think the space was a lot better managed. I mean, we arrived. I don't know whether we missed it, but when we arrived, there were obviously 2 halls. We didn't know which hall had which tables,
We also nearly got caught out by that.
and
So
we just went to one, and like there were a lot of people coming out because they'd gone to the wrong hall.
yeah,
And I could entirely understand, maybe I missed a sign, maybe it was put on the email, in which case entirely fair. But if it wasn't mentioned, like it's those little touches, right, that add to the environment.
yeah. I'm just gonna take a detour because there's people in the chat talking about
Yeah.
judges. I want to make it clear, right, that what I think UKTC is doing with the judges program is genuinely one of the best things the competitive game has ever had in it in the entirety of the time I've been involved. It has been long overdue that judges get paid adequately for their time and responsibility. All I am asking for is that judges are given the ability to make a decision, right, and not have to always get higher ups, right? Their knowledge of the rules will improve over time. It's a very new program, right? Yes, we want rules judges to know the rules, right? But this is a new thing. right? It will take time for people to be correct on the rules, right? You know, and as long as the judges are open to being shown why they're wrong, fair enough. But it needs to be when they have all the correct information that they are able to make a decision and not have to get a higher up for it. Otherwise, we may as well not have the judges there at all, right? Otherwise, we may as well just have a head judge and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point of the other judges? I think it needs to be given time, but I think it needs to be said that individual judges need to be given decision-making ability.
Yeah, I figured it out. So there we are. Wow, that's us wrapped up in a very short, sharp, succinct 1 hour 34.
Yeah, I've nailed that one,
So
Chris.
if you enjoy one person talking about their team's round for 1 hour, well, tomorrow we've got 4 people. So ready for the 4 hour long, that 6 plus. No, tomorrow evening's podcast will be how 6 plus got on. We're going to be talking about our rounds. We will also, as a group, be talking about potentially the event and those sorts of things. But as always, Jack, you've been an absolute superstar. Thank you very much for all of your thought. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. This has been our most ever viewed live episode with over 60 people. So thank you so much. We hope you had a wonderful ITT, and we will see you on the screen anyway very, very soon.